welcome to the lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on GameSpot.com, right here on twitch.tv/GameSpot, and on YouTube as well. We are live. We're back. No more messing about with this VOD. Let's patch it up later nonsense, Peter Brown. We're live on the internet.
Wait, shit, we're live.
This is live right now.
Oh, God.
I can't bleep out that shit you just said. I can't bleep out the curse you're about to say, Travis Gafford.
Holy moly.
Holy moly. There you go.
Tone it down.
Yeah.
God damn it. We get you on the show finally and you come out with trash like that.
My first line ever. Holy moly.
You're an awful person.
Yeah.
We've got a great show today. We got Aaron Sampson coming on to talk about his experience playing the division. Chris Waters is going to come on and talk to us all about Oscar nominations, what we think should win, what we think should lose, what we think was oddly omitted. We've got you and Peter to talk about Resident Evil 0 HD Remaster.
You got it.
That's a name.
And Travis, you're here to talk about the esports.
It's an up and coming thing.
It's great that you're here because we wanted to talk about ESPN and esports and everything. And I reached out to ESPN and we're going to get them on. I think maybe later in the week I'm going to talk to some of those folks. I reached out to Rod, of course, who used to work here at GameSpot as well. So we're going to get those guys in later in the week. But you were just so happened to be in town today. So
yeah, no, this was great. I woke up and had a DM from you asking if I could Skype in, and I said, well, why would I do that when I'm right around the corner? I could just come in and sit down. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So you're just fresh back from North American LCS, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So down in LA, for those that don't know, I do work at GameSpot, but sometimes little hidden away because I just do the esports stuff, and I'm down in Los Angeles too. So nothing that I'm never around the office here to show up in any of the backgrounds.
Yeah, once in a blue moon.
So, but yeah, NALCS just kicked off this weekend, and that's really exciting.
And another big exciting thing that's happening, at least when it comes to folks like us who are we're not within the sort of esports community, but we're very much like interested in what's going on, is what's happening with ESPN. It's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, Bobby Kotick was saying that when they bought MLG, they said this is part of our future plans to be the ESPN of esports. And it turns out ESPN wanted to also be the ESPN of esports. They've set up this new section on their site. They'd been dabbling in esports before. They of course had the international on a while ago as well. Like from you, right? From somebody who's been covering esports, covering League of Legends for so long, what does this say to you that ESPN are getting involved?
I mean, it's really interesting. I think for a long time, especially within the esports community, there was a lot of desire for validation because I think the general sentiment among the esports community and fans and people working in it is that esports are on par with traditional sports, the physical athletic sports. And, anytime that ends up happening or anytime that conversation starts up, sports fans and even prominent figures at ESPN and other places have said, oh, this is a joke, like they just talk about it as a nerd thing and whatever. So I do think that there's a great deal of validation for seeing them come in. And I imagine it's only a sign of things to come as we start to see kind of this interesting Venn diagram blur of game sites like GameSpot that cover esports, and then obviously sports sites like ESPN covering esports as well.
Yeah, so I guess this wind change has been happening for years, but even in terms of months, like I remember there was a story in Kotaku a couple of months ago when ESPN aired, I think it was like a Hearthstone tournament or something on ESPN2. It was
Heroes of the Dorm, the Heroes of the Storm, collegiate tournament. Yeah.
And one of them, there was some really great tweets about it. I can't believe ESPN2 are showing nerds playing video games. Says a self-confessed nerd who plays fantasy football. My favorite one is, can we all just take a moment to appreciate that the World of Warcraft Championship is on ESPN2 right now? Do you think like this is like a big statement then? Is this more representative of people becoming okay with esports more, or is this them looking for an in on something that's quite profitable?
I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? Like I don't think a company is going to be interested in covering something that no one's really interested in, but I do think that it also sort of shows that people that are making those kind of tweets, quite frankly, their opinion is relevant whenever it comes to this discussion, because what is actually happening is you're seeing more and more. I mean, BBC broadcast League of Legends World Championships a couple months ago. ESPN is getting in, like the sports sites, sports companies. More and more sponsors are coming in. All of those people are validating esports as a sport, and so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, like if a sports fan who is only interested in watching MLB isn't interested in esports or doesn't feel like it's a sport, because everybody else is deciding that it is. All the people that are actually covering this stuff, all the people that are making business deals around it, do think that. So I think,
and all the people who watch it.
right, exactly. And I mean that's the thing, is that the viewership is there, and it's only growing. Fans are more passionate. Fans are getting more interested in this stuff. More and more stuff. Esports are coming along. CS:GO getting bigger and bigger every year. League continues to be a juggernaut. It's just, this is, in my opinion, the future, and we're only going to see this stuff. It's going to be very funny to look back on any of this footage or any of these comments like 20, 30, 40 years down the road, whenever there's it's just commonly accepted.
Yeah. Okay. Let me if you allow me to digress and being self-indulgent for a little second, let me transport maybe this a couple of years ahead, further into the future. And I kind of want to talk to Peter about this a little bit. If what we're seeing is the mass media getting into something like esports, which for a long time was this sort of bubble, right? We kind of feel the same way about video games, right? When we were growing up, it was specialist magazines, specialist press. There were some mainstream television dabbling into it, but for the most part, it was sort of off temperature and it never really clicked, right? We don't have a long series of television shows that sort of lasted the test of time when it comes to games. Looking ahead, say like something like 5 years time, if something like esports, which is this super sort of like small, passionate, well not small, sorry, but like this like very passionate community, focused community, I'll say, is something that ESPN are trying to get into. Do you think maybe this is the start of the mainstream press, in the way we've seen mainstream culture really latch onto games in the past 2 years, try and sort of finally grab the gaming audience? Like, do you see this happening outside of esports?
I think it'll be easier for excuse me, for esports content to be like easily consumable and like to discover it. But the one thing that I really wonder about is whether ESPN is the right brand for people who are already interested in esports, because they are aligned with things like football and baseball. And so while I don't think that ESPN will fail at what they're attempting, I think what they're going to do is provide a foundation that other people will then use as an example to bolster up maybe a more community focused like esport thing. And I'm really from the outside looking in, but for me, like so many people who consume esports content, I hate that I just said consume content. The people who get that stuff,
don't worry, we'll edit it out later. Right?
Yeah, they do it on Twitch, they do it on YouTube, right? Like they're engaging with this stuff the way that they have been, and I don't know if they're going to then flock to ESPN. But again, like you were saying, I think it's a good example of sort of the economy of esports being validated by these bigger players that I think will then provide a solid foundation. It's still hard to tell, like, when the balance is going to tip in terms of mainstream people wanting this, because I think there are even a lot of people like our age, and I don't know who is the outlier and who's the exception to this, but not all of us like esports, right? But the younger generation, they really do. So I think this might actually provide a stronger like long-term gain for things rather than the short term. So I could see it making it more mainstream and more popular. But I think ESPN is going to have maybe a rough time. It's
an interesting question, isn't it? Because like if there is this big sort of clanism around esports, and they're well needed to be, because like I remember being super into Counter-Strike and sort of being vaguely interested in watching competitive games, and when it tried to break through, and it kind of did, and then it like petered out again. Like the community in these like esport games, from my outside perspective, they seem to understand that if they want this stuff to really work, they need to be passionate, and they need to give a shit. So when you see something like ESPN getting involved, obviously, like you're saying, it's a really good sort of marker. It's a great way of saying, okay, we've been legitimized in this way. But do you think the esports community cares about ESPN's coverage like outright? Do they care enough to watch it? Because presumably, if they're happy that it exists, if it crashes and burns, that's obviously not a very good commentary on esports either.
Yeah, I think that the solution to that is to hire people who people care about and who already have a following, and that seems to be what they're doing. I mean, and full disclosure, these guys are my friends, but people like Fion, who is a very prolific writer within the League of Legends community and covers all the esports side of that stuff. It got picked up by them, and he's going to be putting features up and already has several times. And they've reached out to even like the moment that this was actually kind of an interesting story. The moment ESPN went live with the site and the announcement went out, they only had, I think it was League, Dota, and Hearthstone up on the top tab.
Yes, I remember.
And people were, the CS:GO community kind of went crazy about it. The Smash community, like a lot, because all the ESPN announcement went up on the boards for all these different communities, and everybody's reaction was like, yeah, but they're not covering our game, or they're only going to cover League. And they did a really good job of immediately being like, actually, here's a really cool write-up on the Smash tournament that's happening this weekend. And they posted that last week. And apparently they have CS:GO content going up today. So I think they're doing a good job of being really proactive in finding people that are already creating content within these communities and really helping to spotlight them. I think the other thing, and not to spin it off into too much of a larger discussion, but
Go for it.
I think that what's interesting to wonder is what are ESPN's long-term plans in the esports industry?
Right.
Because is it just like, oh, we're just going to do these write-ups, or are they looking to do more stuff like they did with the Heroes of the Dorm tournament, where they're going to broadcast it on ESPN2? Are they looking to, we're seeing a lot of these companies move into streaming traditional sports on their sites and doing stuff like that. Are they going to become a Twitch competitor whenever it comes to a lot of these tournaments? So, and if that's the case, and they're, ESPN starts broadcasting a League of Legends tournament or a Hearthstone tournament or whatever, and then they're also having coverage on their site with really prolific folks from that community. I keep using prolific; it's my new favorite word. Then we're going to start to see, I think, that brand become much more accepted and well known within the industry.
Yeah, I guess last question, it's sort of like a personal one that I want to ask you. I touched on it a bit earlier. Like, you were at NALCS last week. You've been covering this stuff for years and years and years. We were talking before the show. You were saying about how it used to be like you turn up to these events and like maybe one other YouTuber, and now you turn up in SportsCenter and ESPN and everyone's there. Do you think this has been a long time coming, or like, are you shocked in 2016 that ESPN have done this, or does it now feel like right?
Yeah, I think now's a good time. I think that the growth has been very significant over the past years for this, but it definitely would have been a very strange thing for me to see at the start of LCS, 3 or so years ago. Now with all the changes I've been seeing, Rick Fox, former NBA Lakers champion, owns a team in NALCS.
I saw
now.
the ring. Is that where you had the ring on?
There was a ring. I don't want to say where I got it, but yes, that was the first and probably only time I'll have something worth $400,000 on my finger.
$400,000.
That was what I was told. And so like that stuff is just happening, and especially in 2015, we saw more and more of this. So it feels like this is just the next step.
Yeah. Travis Gafford, thank you so much for coming in. Great to have you in the lobby, finally.
Yeah, thank you. It's been good to be here and do some content with you. Now I'm going to just get up and exit this room.
We're not doing any trailers, so you just take your cans off and walk out, and hopefully there's a short guy with less hair than you standing out who's going to come in and talk about different video games.
Okay, I'll look for him.
There he is.
Right.
He's coming right in.
Thanks
so
again,
much.
guys. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
Peter Brown, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
My throat is full of crap.
We're gonna. I know it keeps coming out whenever you speak.
I'm good. My cat is ailing. I was taking care of her this weekend. Watched a bunch of anime and live action adaptation of anime.
Live action.
You weren't ready for that.
Anime adaptation.
Why do you like cats? Cats hate people.
Cats
That's
are
not
cool.
true. My cat loves me. Because I'm warm and I feed her.
He's just using you.
Yeah.
When are you going to get that?
I use her.
They just use you.
I use my I went to sleep last night and the cat had taken up like 3/4 of the bed, which is really impressive considering it's a cat. And I have a big.
Well, you
bed.
only have a twin size mattress.
If your cat was the size of a lion, it would eat you because lions will freaking eat you.
That's
but
great.
it's not.
But
If
it
your
ain't.
dog was the size of a lion, it would still love you.
If your baby was as big as an elephant, it would probably throw you on the ground and spit up food on you. Well, it does do one of those things.
Hot video game discussions right here on the lobby. Aaron Sampson,
Hey,
great to have you here. We're going to talk about the division in a little bit, okay?
sounds good.
First of all, I want to ask Peter Brown about a video game he reviewed. We're back, review season. Resident Evil 0 HD Remaster. I guess the latest remastering of Resident Evil 0.
Resident Evil 0 is not like the original remake of the original Resident Evil. Because Resident Evil, the original, was remade for GameCube.
It was.
And then they remastered that for HD. Resident Evil 0, unless you discount the Nintendo 64 prototype that was made,
Right.
it was made for the GameCube and then remastered
For the
now.
Wii.
It wasn't remastered for the Wii.
It wasn't remastered for the Wii?
No, they just ported it and they added new controls.
Okay.
That doesn't count.
So it didn't look better.
No,
It looked a
no.
little bit better, didn't it?
No.
Okay. So this is, as far as you're concerned, this is the only remastering of Resident Evil 0
Yes.
that's coming out this year. Who knows?
Sure.
4 years
Argue
time.
with me online.
Capcom.
But it'll be fun.
I got a bunch of questions from the users on GameSpot.com.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about your review. I've got a couple of questions myself as well. First of all, is this game? It's only like $20 or something. I saw that on Steam. It was only like $20, so it's not a full price game. Yeah.
That sounds right.
So
You can buy it as a bundle with the remake of the original remake.
Right.
for the remaster of the original remake for $40 total, I think.
It's on Windows. You played it on Xbox One, right?
Yes.
It's also on PlayStation 4.
Yes.
Did the 360 and PS3 versions, are they coming as well? I know the original said that.
When I looked at the product listing last time, it did seem
said
to
that?
indicate yes,
Okay.
but I don't have those games in hand.
You haven't played them. No worries. I want to talk to you about Wesker mode because no one asked about Wesker mode. Wesker mode to me
Fools.
is the funny, like it's literally nothing to do probably with the game, but I just love dumb bonus modes for video games.
Yeah.
So you can play this entire game as Albert Wesker, but it doesn't change his voice acting or anything.
No, so it just replaces the character model of Billy.
Yeah.
Billy Cohen.
Everyone's favorite Resident Evil character, Billy.
Yeah, the tank tops, slick haired. So yeah, replaces him with Wesker, and Billy's lines are just stupid to begin with.
Yeah.
I finally see him like utter lines that are really silly and own it because in context, it's really weird to have Wesker having someone else's voice come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
But more importantly, so he's like super powered. He can use guns. He doesn't have unlimited health, but he has the ability to, without limits, release these bursts of energy that decapitate zombies.
Right.
And you can like hold the button down and charge it up so you decapitate zombies that are that far away from you.
Okay, yeah.
He can also run really, really fast. So you
Great.
can knock over
Here
enemies.
he is. Look, bam.
Oh, Albert
Head
Wesker.
explodes. Great.
Yeah. So this is...
He's running super fast. That looks like a broken animation. That's
I know.
great.
And that's just it. Is like so much of this mode is unbalanced.
Right.
And
And that's fun. Is it for speed running then or something? Or
it's for speedrunning. I also think it's kind of cathartic because I sat down and played Resident Evil 0 from start to finish the day before writing this review. And at the end of that, I was very exhausted because that was like 10 to 12 hours of tense survival, like all this stuff. And then it starts me off again. I'm like, okay, I have to try Wesker mode. But then I'm just like tearing through zombies like nothing.
That's great.
And all of a sudden, I feel like the game is new again. All this stress is gone. It's just about fun. And I really like it.
That's good. Good bonus mode. I like it.
It's a great
I wanted to
bonus
give some sort of a bit of time to that because I like dumb bonus modes. I
It's
miss
like
cheat codes.
It's like a mod.
I miss things like that.
It's like a mod you would get for Skyrim or something. But
So-
it's Resident Evil.
So let's talk about Resident Evil 0 then. How do you, before I get to the sort of user questions, how do you review a game like this? Because do you review it based on the fact, like this technical exercise of, oh, this is a remaster of an old game, so how good does it recapture what that old game was? Or do you have to review it as a game that came out, over 10 years ago, and how does it play in 2016? Like, how do you balance that sort of aspect?
Well, it's an old game, and therefore you have to acknowledge the things that are a product of the time. But, you could say, oh, people can just read the old review, and then we can just write something about the technical improvements.
Right.
But a person today, their tastes are probably very different from someone who's reviewing the game back then. Context is everything in these cases.
Or somebody who's playing it.
Somebody's playing
Like,
it.
imagine a teenager
Yeah.
playing this. Yeah.
They weren't, maybe even a kid who's like 12, right? Who was not alive when the game came out. In that sense, you have to review the game for what it is, and you can't really make apologies for things that are old. I think it's fair to point out why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a lot of comments, people saying like, doesn't he understand when this game came out? Like blah, blah, blah. It's like, yes, I played it when it came out. I understand that. But I'm playing it today as someone in 2016, and some things are not that great. And those need to be taken into account, and no apologies, right?
Yeah. 7 out of 10 on GameSpot?
7 out of 10.
Is that correct?
It is a good game.
Excellent. B. Gary1 asks, seeing as the PC version has 60 frames per second option and the PS4 and Xbox One doesn't, are you disappointed? Do you think it would have been, does it benefit from it at all?
I don't think it matters. It didn't matter to me. I mean, unless I'm playing like an arcade shmup, or heaven forbid I ever get into League of Legends, or I'm playing Street Fighter, right? Like,
Yeah.
60 frames per second isn't necessarily that important, especially to a game like Resident Evil.
I was about to say, it's quite cinematic. So,
So even the lower frame rate like lends itself to a more cinematic presentation. And, on consoles, they lock it to 30, probably because they wanted to use the extra headroom for better lighting and shadows.
right.
And on PC, they probably unlocked it for 60 because PC gamers just want to
be able to do that. Yeah.
They want to see the number and feel great about that.
Do it themselves. Yeah, that's true. That's something we come across with making video stuff a lot as well, is that like 60 frames a second is something like for gameplay. Like I feel like that's something they like to do a lot. But for instance, like Andy, is this 30 or 23 you're on? You don't know?
You're not shooting in 60 frames per second.
So this one here is probably on 30, right? So like if we go to Andy's single, whenever we do this for the point, it's always like super low. Yeah, I don't know. Am I wrong? That kind of looks like it's about 24, is it? You it might be being upscaled. We don't know if it's being
We
converted
shot
on the
at
other
60
end.
for a while, and it made it look like there were little live mannequins
Yeah.
inside of YouTube. It was kind of creepy.
Nice.
Like I like 60 frames a second for like 95% of games, but yeah,
Yeah.
there are some situations in which it actually kind of takes away from the
It
experience.
was like weird uncanny valley for some reason.
Yeah.
When we tried doing that on YouTube.
yeah, not a fan.
I think we focus too much on whether a game is 1080p 60 and not
Right.
enough behind maybe why it is or is not.
It's kind of shorthand for does this game look and play fluidly, or at least I feel like that's what it was meant to be, but now it's just turned into this abstract, silly.
Well, yeah, because there's so many discussions like the Xbox One can't do 1080p 60. It's
Right.
like, well, no, it could if the developers like tone down some of the special effects in the game. It's not like everything is built on top of can the system do a certain frame rate of resolution. Like that's the result of everything they've decided to put into the game. And I think people should actually, the discussion should be, I want this game at 60, so they should have toned down the textures, or they should have done this,
Right.
rather than just being like,
I want it all.
blankly the end result isn't what I want it to be, regardless of why.
All right, well, to that end, I've probably talked too much about resolution and frames rate, so let's get to some more gameplay questions. Spike Spiegel asked a question that made me laugh out loud because this is kind of how I feel about it. Did the remaster make this game any less boring, asking for a friend?
Wesker mode made it less boring.
Okay,
I will say that.
all right. Does it feel like when you played Resident Evil 0 the first time?
It does, yeah. I mean, especially because when nostalgia makes everything seem better.
Right.
So I'm not coming at this like, wow, this looks so much better. Like, it looks really good. It looked really good to me back when it came out. So less boring, maybe only if you beat it and unlock that extra mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to unlock it, do you?
Oh yeah, you do.
Do you have to do anything specific to one? Like,
I just played
complete
it
the game, or-
I played it on normal difficulty.
Okay.
I saved whenever I wanted to. I died a couple times. So yeah, no
Sweet.
restrictions.
I got a question here from Savage Road, and I think this might have been Twitter or might have been GameSpot comments. I forget. Everyone says item management is a bad thing in a survival horror game. I don't understand that. That's the part of survival in survival horror. How does that sort of affect Resident Evil 0? Is there much of that, like balancing the amount of stuff that you can carry, ink ribbons, all that?
That's the whole challenge is keeping track of enough items to like defend and heal yourself, while also leaving room for key items you need to solve puzzles and weapons, because it's all sort of in one big pool. But this game makes it easier because in other Resident Evil games you had to go to designated storage chests. So if you forgot something, it was like, shit, I need to go slog all the way back there. Now you can leave items in any room, and the map system is really good about telling you where you left something and what it is. And you can exchange items between characters. That said, it is a little silly sometimes because you'll pick up things that maybe don't go in your inventory. It's sort of like a lore item. And there's no limit to how much lore you can carry.
There's a limit to the amount of lore I can read.
Right. And, but it's weird when like a key takes up the same amount of space as something even like a handgun or like a bunch of like grenade munitions.
Yeah.
It's like it's a bit imbalanced. So it seems silly, but the conceit fits what the game is trying to be. And it is this puzzle of, having things you need to survive and then also being able to progress through the game.
Yeah. Interesting. I spend all weekend playing The Long Dark, which is basically a game. It's only about that, about having like inventory management and weight consumption. So I think depending on the game, I guess it either works or it doesn't. That's kind of all the questions we've having to people, the folks on GameSpot.com and reaching out over Twitter. So I guess your final thoughts on it, Peter. It's a solid remake of a decent Resident Evil game. It sounds like. Yeah,
like if you want like old school survival horror and you don't mind playing a game that's like got fixed cameras, go for it. It's not as good as the first one, but it's still all right.
Awesome. There you go. Thanks very much, Peter. Appreciate you coming on, talking to us about it. Let us know what you think of Resident Evil HD, Resident Evil 0 HD remaster in the comments below. Let us know, are you interested in picking it up? Would you have picked it up if it was a full price game, actually? I'm interested to hear that. Do you think you'll get it because it's around the $20 limit? Let us know in the comments below and in the chat as well. All the chats here. Thanks everyone for tuning in at the moment on GameSpot.com and twitch.tv/GameSpot, and to our folks watching on YouTube Gaming as well. Super appreciated. We're going to get into the division in a second. I want people to sort of in the chat to warm up and come up with any ideas or questions they have for the division. But while we're sort of waiting for that, put that shouter out there. What you guys been playing over the weekend? Did you get into anything over the wet weekend here in the East Bay? Or in the Bay Area, there was trees falling down in my local neighborhood. It was a real weekend for like staying in and playing games.
Yeah, good for games.
Not leaving it out, yeah. Did you get to play anything over the weekend?
Yeah, I've been pretty hopelessly addicted to Rainbow Six Siege.
Oh, really? Still?
Yeah, it's a game, I'll admit it's a game with technical flaws, but it's also one of the best examples of just what I used to love about Battlefield, which is just you can learn something every single time you play that game.
Right.
And there's always somebody doing a new strategy you never thought of. You're thinking of new strategies. Everything's super dynamic with the wall destruction. Also, it uses maps in a way that I haven't seen in a long time, where there's a limited number of maps, but the locations on the maps are also different.
Really?
That you can fight in 2 different locations on the same map and just have completely different experiences. So
is it changing as well? Like with the player base sort of, like presumably now they're really good in comparison to what they were months ago. Has that sort of affected the enjoyment as well?
It's funny because I think you'll see certain strategies emerge like one week and then people will find a counter to that strategy. For example, there's 2 maps. It's not the proper name. I call it the Waco map because it's like a map from Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
But like it's one of the only maps out in the ship map where you can actually, as a defender, run to the other side of the map, break out a window and shoot attackers off the building as they climb up it.
Wow, cool.
And there's only 2 maps you can do that on. So I think people have gotten pretty savvy to defenders not playing the objective and just running off on the map to random towers and places. So that was over break. I saw a lot of people playing outside of their roles.
Excellent.
Which is exciting because you really got to think before you go into each compound.
Thinking man shooter.
Yeah.
Thinking person shooter. Battlefield doesn't scratch that itch anymore?
It did for a long time. It was too much of the same. It's
Right.
not that it couldn't again, but I think that they need to just completely rethink Battlefield to a certain extent. It up through 3 it was fantastic, and then I think 4 just regurgitated 3. So, you just at that point where that feeling like you've eaten too much candy.
Yeah.
It's just that like I still like candy, but I just cannot take another bite of this.
Yeah.
And I need a new flavor.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we have you here to talk about a different flavor then, as it happens. After 2 years of delays, we're mere weeks away from the launch of The Division, ahead of its beta, I guess, which is next week. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a beta supposedly starts on the 28th.
Okay. So I guess ahead of that, between more people getting their hands on it, I kind of really want to know, like, get right down to it and sort of talk about exactly what this game is, because it feels like we filled in the blanks of what we saw as far back as E3 2013 as to what this game was. Like, I remember watching that initial trailer and thinking, oh, this is very sort of like slow and intentional co-op experience, like something like a co-op Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter or something like that. I'm a massive fan of all Rainbow Six games, Ghost Recon, stuff like that. Kind of felt like that, like everyone's talking and on point, and the numbers were popping up, but it felt like sort of like a tactical shooter that was co-op. From what we've heard over the past week, it looks like it's more like a sort of an online party shooter where you're fighting waves upon waves of people. Aaron, you played it last week. Scott Butterworth has a great preview up on the site, which folks can go check out if they want to as well. But I want to talk to you about what this game is. What does it, as somebody who plays shooters primarily, as somebody who loves games like Battlefield and loves games like Rainbow Six Siege, what is The Division to you when you were literally like shooting people and playing it?
So The Division, it's a co-op shooter. It's more so a co-op shooter than Destiny is. I think a lot of people compare this game to Destiny. In Destiny, there's people wandering around the world when you're playing it. I don't know. I would call it a mini-mo. It's like just a mini MMO.
Like other human players.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like mini-mo. Can we use that?
But like...
Mini-mo problems, mini-mo money. No? Okay, sorry.
So The Division is not like that. It really is a co-op shooter. You will only see other players in the first area that you spawn, and then maybe in a couple other select spaces. So you do have to pull your friends in with you before you go out into the city.
Okay.
They're marketing it as an RPG right now.
Yeah, very heavily. It seems like actually, it's almost like they've realized people don't think it's not an RPG, and they're sort of. Well, I guess we'll get into what RPG means for a game like The Division. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, so it took Destiny. I think it took took Bungie a good year to realize that it was. They thought they had a shooter. What they really had was a shooter RPG. So for The Division, they're coming at it from the other side. They're saying we have an RPG, and the shooting is kind of a byproduct of that. And I'm not sure which came first, whether like the sort of mediocre. I don't know if it's mediocre. It's just okay shooting. It's
right.
The shooting doesn't feel fantastic. It gets the job done. And it complements the world, which I think is very well fleshed out. You have a very good sense of time and place in The Division. It feels like the pandemic happened, all the weak people died off, and like you're right at that
liberals.
moment. Yeah. People who can run fast enough all died. It feels like you're at that moment, right, where people are like running out of their supplies.
Right.
And they're getting desperate, and these three factions, the Rikers, Looters, and Cleaners, are all kind of at their height of power. That's when you come into it. Now, what you're actually doing in the world, I think it's going to depend on whether you like RPG or shooters more.
Right.
The shooting itself and the cover system is I found it to be very imprecise. I love another Ubisoft game, Ghost Recon Phantoms, which is another cover-based shooter. In that you run, you can knee slide, you can prone slide, you can get in cover, and you can have 3 different standing, kneeling, or prone. You have none of that control in this game.
Okay.
All you really have are a Gears of War dive roll, a Gears of War roadie run to cover, and then the game itself handles how your character behaves in cover.
Right.
And then
It's quite interesting you say that, because when I think about what made, Destiny such a great game to play, regardless of its the litany of problems it had at launch, and then a lot of which were fixed last year, eventually, was that it's a Bungie shooter. Like they just do shooting real good. So to hear you say that like shooting and movement doesn't feel particularly great is a little bit really.
But on the other hand, this has much deeper RPG mechanics, which is kind of what they're advertising. So you have 3 sets, you have like 3 skill trees that are going at all times. You have your abilities, which you have 3 of them, and you have no limitations. You can pick from any skill tree. Then you have basically the equivalent of active skills, and you have passive skills. So you're going to find a lot of people doing stats tweaking. You can craft items. You can build very specific characters, but you're not locked into them. Like if something doesn't work, you just back out and go another direction.
Are you leveling up that one character and sort of unlocking better loot as you go along, or does it feel more like you're doing higher level missions and then through those missions you're finding better loot?
You find better loot through higher level missions. There's a little bit of a disparity with like a level 1. I kind of had the same thing I found with Destiny. Like a level 1 gun against a level 1 character didn't really feel that different from a level 20 gun with a level 20 character.
Right, yeah.
Because we played both a starting character and a level 20 character. The game didn't feel like it had changed that much, but I didn't get to experience the journey and the storyline that happens in between 1 and 20. So again, mechanically, I thought the game was competent. It's not the thing that's going to carry it like Destiny.
It sounds like it as opposed to Destiny, which I remember Kevin's review back in, I guess it was like 2014 at this stage, was one of the biggest things he said, Peter, was that it was a game that was sort of bereft of place. Like, and we've subsequently found out that the story had actually been ripped out of the game. Do you think that's important to a co-op like shooter like this? Did it matter in Destiny that it didn't really feel fleshed out? And do you think it could be to the benefit of a game like The Division? Because maybe that's what people like about games like Borderlands. I don't know.
I think it really matters. I mean, and you look at something like Destiny that's set in sort of like these alien worlds. It's easy to like, and I say easy, in very limited terms, but it's easy to sort of concoct these fantastical things that don't exist, right? And just out of your imagination and say this is what the world is.
Yeah.
But for The Division, it's using Manhattan, right? Like people know Manhattan.
Contemporary
they live
time,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important in the sense that it's grounding the game in something that we can relate to. And as you made it sound, they actually do a good job of that, which I think that's important for any game to do is to draw you into the world. Or else it is just about mechanics.
Yeah.
But a game needs a little bit of soul.
I think that's what people sort of gravitated towards when they saw the E3 2013 stuff, was that, this feels different because it's like, it's contemporary and it feels like it's grounded and it feels like I can reach out and sort of touch it like a lot of these games can.
And for me, like growing up with harsh winters, like in and around New York, for me, it was like cool. Like I could see this happening sort of, right? Like if the shit hit the fan, like I was like, I want to experience that because I've walked those streets and to see them empty, but then like there's a dude hiding behind a car door, like waiting to take you out. Like it looks good to me, and so I think it's important in that regard. The gameplay, like I have so many questions, and it's not so much about what it does or doesn't have, but it's just how it feels. That's the one thing I'm really wondering.
There's a couple of questions that are coming in from the Twitch chat, and a couple I've already banked to sort of touch on that. And if I don't get around to it, feel free to throw your own at them as well. But a lot of people are asking a lot of questions about. It feels like you've sort of tempered your expectation, and that's the conversation we're having. Whereas the internet is very much like, is this what I think it was? So some of those questions are Thomas Rock's echoing a lot of what people are saying in the Twitch chat right now. Impressions on whether or not enemies are a bit bullet spongy. That's one of the things that came across in the gameplay was, man, you were shooting that guy in the head a lot. He doesn't really seem like he's reacting in a realistic way. I saw a clip where there was 5 or 6 just hooded people wandering towards, not taking cover and soaking up bullets like it's going out of fashion. is that the experience of playing The Division?
I would have two things to say about that. I think, one, it's a double-edged sword because it's a contemporary setting. You're not shooting aliens or locusts or something huge that feels like it could take a lot of bullets.
Right.
So it is a little weird when you're pumping a dude with a hoodie full of rounds and he's not reacting at all.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the disparity between what I'd like the shooting to be and what it is came down to just the enemies not reacting very present.
Right.
Like they don't seem aware that they're getting shot a lot of times and they don't react like they're getting shot. And I think those are potentially fixable things. On the other hand, I will say that the preview build that we all played, including YouTubers and everybody who was there, was 3 people playing, and the game, we were told, scales to difficulty. So I do wonder, I think a lot more people are going to be playing this as a single player experience than people think, because you won't run into other people randomly in the world outside of the spawn zone.
That's an interesting question. Owen O'Connell asked, what will this game offer to someone who's playing solo? Could you play? Because that's the main reason I dropped off Destiny was I got to whatever, I think of like super low, like level 15 or 16 or something. And I just thought, oh God, I really feel like my experience is being handicapped because I'm not playing with other people. So is this a game, do you think you could play solo?
The question is, how well does the game scale to a solo player?
Yeah.
We didn't see that. It was very hard with 3 people. And I will say that the challenge was there for 3 people, and you will probably have to work with your friends. If they do the same thing to an individual, I don't see how you would survive on normal difficulty. But again, we didn't get to see the game scale down to a single person. But yeah, like that was one of the reasons why I'd taper off Destiny over time too. And, I would come back to it as my friends came back to it and then taper off as they tapered off.
Yeah.
Whereas this game, end game content aside, that's a whole other discussion. It probably will be a little bit more friendly to an individual person. Actually, probably a lot more friendly to an individual person than Destiny was.
I guess, yeah, it'll dodge some of those problems. Critical Reviews asks, is it pretty easy to group up with friends? And then Bob Jones 1980 asking a question a lot of people in the chat are, max party size. So was it easy to get involved with other people? And what was it? Is it 4 as the max? Yeah,
4 players co-op. I think in the zone you spawn, it was pretty easy. I can't remember. It was just a couple button presses after waving at somebody, or somebody on your friends list. It's a little bit disappointing that you're not going to just run into people out in the world, because I always liked that about kind of just organically meeting up with people to share a moment and then dissipating. And you won't get that outside of the dark zone, but there is the dark zone. I will say that the dark zone is probably more true to their original vision than any other aspect of this game. It feels like kind of the DayZ meets, I don't know.
It sounds like an instance, like just a multiplayer instance or something where you're kind of, well, actually, I guess the opposite of what an instance is, in that it's like you're booting into like an area where you can run into random people. I mean, it looks like what they showed at E3 2013, at least, not to keep holding the game accountable to its original vision, but like that's what I wanted to play, right? That's what I think people in the chat wanted to play.
And I think that's where people are all going to end up too. As a matter of fact, I think you're going to want to get there as early as possible, because I don't know how they're going to stats balance, or whether they're going to stat balance at all for weapons. Like, I don't know if a bunch of level 20s are just going to dominate, or level 30s are going to dominate that area. So I have a feeling a lot of people are going to check out the open world, and then depending on how gated it is, because there are gates with virus masks,
right?
And there are gates
level 20 mask above or only.
Yeah.
How big was the dark zone?
I think it was almost a third of the map.
Okay. Actually, and then that goes into a question. A lot of people, Coffee Jesus in the Twitch chat asking, do you think Ubisoft snapping Brooklyn off The Division smacks of Destiny, trying to make more money from the game later? And I guess echoing what Mr. Mazik said, can you compare The Division's map size to another game so we have some sort of perspective? How big is this game? And do you think it can still be playable at the size it is now, or still worthwhile?
The unanswered question. So the short answer is, if I just had to just freaking snowball it, I would say it's about the size of Destiny without loading screens. So if you just took all the planets in the original Destiny and smooshed them together,
that's what it kind of feels like.
Remove loading screens.
Yeah,
it's comparable to that size. We spent 3 hours in just one, 10 square block area doing missions and stuff. So it's sizable. The density of content is really what matters.
Yeah.
And also, because it's in a city with skyscrapers, we have no idea what kind of verticality the game will have.
Right.
I mean, it's 3 dimensions. So, we know there's an underground. I don't know if there's any skyscrapers that you can go into. So yeah, it's a 3-dimensional map, and we just don't know how much of that space they're using.
But it didn't feel like this was a game that would be critically hampered from having Brooklyn off the map, or having, let's just say, an extra 50% or 100% more map. Did it feel like it was sort of substantial? I know it's a super difficult question because I'm asking you off a 3-hour demo to fucking tell me how big the game is. But
I'm not very concerned about map size. I guess if you're coming as like a Skyrim player, like, no, you're not getting you're not getting anything like that. Again, I think you're worried. What you're actually worried when you ask that question is about content density, and whether there's enough for you to do in the world.
Yeah, the Quailer's asking, can you see Division having any longevity problems? So I guess that's probably the
longevity
question.
Right now. The only proposed longevity I can see is in the Dark Zone. Whether the Dark Zone ends up being like DayZ or whether the Dark Zone ends up just being generic like PvP.
Right, yeah.
We don't know yet. That's where the best loot is. That's where all the high-level players are going. If you hit level 30, they actually have like a dedicated Dark Zone for the highest level players.
VIP club.
Yeah. I am concerned, though. I don't know how matchmaking is going to work in the Dark Zone. And if you start this game a week late, like, I don't know if a bunch of level 20s are just going to stomp you the second you get in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can wander it solo, because if I got 3 guys and you're by yourself with some sick loot, I'm just going to take you out.
Yeah, for sure.
I have no motivation to not do that.
Yeah. Pick them off easy. Peter, you got any questions for Aaron?
Where'd you get that sweet hat?
No, I bet the Division.
I feel like for any of us to, like you were kind of pointing out, to really like speak about this game in definite terms, we have to play it for a long amount of time, and that's just what I want to do. I just, when can I play it?
Yeah, I guess. As somebody who has at least had like a smidgen of what that experience is, that we're all looking forward to it. How did you feel coming away from having some time with the Division? Did you feel disappointed? Did you feel like you had to reset your expectation? Did you feel like it was fun in a different way? What did you think?
I think actually Eric Tay in our office put it best, where
he always does.
Yeah, the expectation kind of tanked after last year's E3.
Right.
So my expectations were properly lowered going into this. I think I see a fun game. I didn't see a, like, in the 3 hours we played it, it wasn't fantastic. It was totally competent. I could see having a lot of fun grouping up with friends and playing through. And I did see some, like in the echo sequences, I actually did see some genuinely really good writing, like with the Rikers prisoners. There was a great moment where one of them was like torturing a guard, and the guard says to him, like, you know, dude, I'm not just a number. I'm not just a uniform. I'm a guy. And the Rikers guy says to him, great, well, now you know how I feel. So, like, there were some good moments like that, but there were also moments where some of the main characters were kind of like cheeseballing it.
Why is Dan Reichert taking prisoners?
Thinking the same thing.
So, yeah, good. 3 hours with it. It was good, but not great.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to digging much deeper into this game and seeing what the deeper content is.
Yeah, it's out pretty soon. First week of March, is that right? Yeah, and the alpha.
March 8th.
March
I think
8th
is the unofficial right now.
Okay,
maybe
cool.
the official. Yeah.
When is the mobile companion app?
That might have been cut.
I think.
Oh God!
Oh, well, how am I going to get that drone to come in?
Yeah.
Just like just a super loud asshole with a gun on it. Have you seen videos of them trying to put guns on drones? Have you seen that? It's so good. It's just like
I mean,
nightmare.
America.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, the Division probably has the tech. Aaron Sampson, thank you so much for coming in, telling us all about your time with the Division.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time. You folks who are watching this live, thank you so much, by the way, for supplying us with questions. For you guys watching this on GameSpot or YouTube after the fact, and you have any questions, by all means, feel free to put them in the comments below. We'll try and get to them. Let us know what you think about the Division. Are you excited for it? Are you stemming your expectation? Put your thoughts in the comments below. All right, Mr. Sampson, I'm going to swap you out for a certain Mr. Waters, who I think should be outside that door. We'll do a little drum roll and find out. Thanks so much, man. What are you working on this week, actually, that people should sort of keep an eye on in the next day or so?
I don't know if I can actually say.
Great. All right. Hot embargoes on GameSpot.com.
But I'm looking forward to Division Beta next week.
Yes.
I will be playing.
For sure. Awesome.
Thanks.
And we'll have more Hot Division content up on Games. I fucking said content as well.
You love content.
Content. Can we invent some technology where the minute I say content, it's like redacted? It's like a black bar comes across my mouth and then can't say anything. What do you think of that, Christopher?
I think Aaron Sampson's been sitting at this desk.
You don't talk into the...
That's twice you guys have called him out for not being as tall as you.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Aaron's a great guy.
Just not as tall as you.
Just not as... He's not as a lot of things as me. He's not as fat as me. He's not as Irish as me. He's not as much of a prolific lover as me.
He's married, Danny.
Well, then I take it back.
He has 3 children. Who you calling not prolific, man?
That's a good point. How you doing, guys?
I'm still good.
You still good? We've talked a lot of...
Things haven't changed. Hello.
We've talked a lot about video games today. Let's talk about something else for a little second. Chris Waters, you're here. You watched some movies over the weekend. I watched some movie films over the weekend. Peter Brown has been known to watch a movie that isn't anime.
I watched anime over the weekend.
The Oscars are on pretty soon. Nominations have come out, not without a little degree of controversy as well. We'll get to that later. But first of all, I want to talk about, this is kind of like what we talk about around the office when we're not talking about games, especially this time of year. So Oscar season, right? What are the movies that are nominated in Best Picture? What are the ones we think are good? I always find this interesting because the Oscars, especially Best Film, is always this weird mix of, oh yeah, of course, and what is that? Like, I've never heard of it before. So let's go down through the list and see which of these movies sort of lit us on fire. First one up, Mad Max Fury Road. George Miller's long time coming Mad Max sequel. You know, whenever you try and go back and make a new version of an old movie or of an old series, it's always, you know, super risky business. This is like easily the best Mad Max movie ever made.
It's so good.
Chris, what do you think of it?
I love that movie. I mean, I like to go to the movies. I don't do it terribly often, but I don't like. I'm not a dude who ever like watches a movie twice.
Right.
I don't go to the theater multiple times, and I don't own a lot of Blu-rays. I don't like ask for them for gifts or anything, but I asked for Mad Max this year for Fury Road because I was like, I need to see this movie again, and I need to be able to watch it again and again because it was just like so vivid and alive and breathtaking and like intriguing throughout like every frame. And it lit me on fire when I saw it in the theater, and I watched it over the holiday break again, and it's so good. It's
super dense. They always say the movies that make all that really big money, like that crazy Star Wars money, are ones that get off multiple viewing. And I saw this twice in the cinema as well. Peter, are you a fan of Mad Max?
I thought it was amazing. I mean, I saw Mad Max movies growing up as a kid, and they were always kind of this kitschy thing that you kept in the background. Like, oh yeah, remember those movies? This was like, guess what? This is what Mad Max should have been all along. And it was, as you said, dense. You took the words out of my mouth. Dense with characters, wonderful cinematography, wonderful sets. There was only a few things that bothered me, and even then, those like it just took another like scene change for me to forget all about it.
Right.
I thought it was amazing, and yeah, I've seen it multiple times, and I think it should just exist in isolation. I don't know that I want any more.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like you're going to get any.
Right, because
Miller subsequently come out and said that plans to do the 2 other ones are now not happening. But
but I think this movie should exist on its own and just be this great, awesome little thing.
Looking forward to showing this to my kids in 20 years from now, and saying, that's what they said the world will be like, and here we are. Next one up, looking back to the past, Brooklyn. I'm guessing I'm the only one that's seen this.
Danny, I haven't seen it.
Have you seen this?
What's Brooklyn?
Brooklyn is Saoirse Ronan, or Saoirse if you're an American reading her name. It's a story of this girl who, like a familiar tale for me, a girl who moves from actually a town that's about 20 miles from where I grew up in Wexford, moves to Brooklyn.
Isn't that all towns in Ireland are 20 miles?
20 miles away. It's her experience sort of moving to America, feeling homesick, going home, falling in love. And it was a wonderful, I really enjoyed this movie, not just because the creators of which, Amanda Posey and Finola Dwyer, shout out to the clan, not that clan. Not just because it's a super great Irish movie or a movie about Ireland in so many ways, but it's a really fascinating sort of timepiece. I love movies that really capture old times well. And I've actually never been to New York in my life, so I can't say that it captured New York particularly well. But life in Ireland and the Irish scenes for me was completely spot on to what I remember and what I remember people telling me about my parents and grandparents.
So this is like a 1900s
Yes, this is
movie?
like 19, I want to say 50s.
Okay.
Sort of immigrant movie.
Post-war.
Yes.
Okay.
Around that time. Yeah, super good. I enjoyed it a lot. I was actually surprised to see it though, to be completely honest. On this, I thought it was sort of like just one of those good movies that won't get recognized outside of it. So moving on from that, I guess to something that I'm guessing we've all seen, The Martian. Mm-hmm. You seen it? All right, Peter. What do you think of The Martian? Matt Damon on a Mars. Spoilers. There's no Martians.
Maybe it was the character that I built in my head when I was reading the book, but Matt Damon's portrayal of the lead character, I can't remember his name now.
Johnny Martian.
It just really kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
All right.
I'm not getting Best Picture vibe from this film at all. I from the list, just looking at it before this, I didn't realize that it was nominated. I don't think it should be.
Yeah.
I thought his portrayal was not great. I thought the film didn't focus on enough things in the book that made it an interesting read for me,
right?
Which was the sort of thought processes that he went through when trying to figure out, okay, how do I fix things? How do I make this happen? Matt Damon was just like, I got it, no problem. Like, hey, did you see that now? So ding, ding, ding. Like, it's like, okay, I get it. You're this like charming, clever dude, but what about the struggle you're going through? Like, there were a couple mishaps that threw him off his, his comfy chair, but like really? Like, that's all the struggle you're going to go through during this entire journey? It just didn't hit me.
Chris, I remember you were talking about it, about how process really worked in that movie. How like it was a great movie about the scientific method as much as it was about the reality of what was happening.
Yeah.
That's why you liked that movie. Right?
I was drawn to that movie, and I hadn't read the book, so my perspective was a little different than Peter's. And I think that it is a movie that like, it's really cool that he's just like shoveling a bunch of poop and then putting a bunch of poop on the floor. Like,
right.
That's not a heroic act, but this movie makes it feel like it. It makes it feel like, okay, like writing how many like chicken teriyaki dinners you got out on a whiteboard. Like, that's a smart thing that a person does. And I think so much of science and so much of that kind of expertise that has led to the world that we live in so many ways is kind of boring. Like when you look at it on the face of it, it's like a lot of like process work, a lot of grinding through. And so I think The Martian did a great job of distilling that in a way where it kind of honors those otherwise sort of seemingly mundane actions and elevates them because of the setting. And to me, the setting was one of the standouts. I mean, I'm not a guy who like looks at pictures that the rover sends back from Mars and is like, damn,
dude, I love that
cool.
stuff. That
like
blows my
I think they
mind.
look cool, and I'm interested like on a intellectual level, but the like vistas that the visual effects team created for The Martian made that planet look like fascinating and intriguing and foreboding and beautiful to me in a way that actual pictures of it haven't, which is fine. It's movie magic, but like, I don't know. I felt that pull and I felt that connection with like our actual space efforts. Despite the fact that it ends on this like crazy rocket ship sequence in outer space. Like, oh my God, I'm going out to get him. Like, it does those action movie tropes and it falls into that in a way that I think ended up being off-putting for you.
I mean, a lot of people in the chat sort of echoing that as well. That like it's like I kind of feel the same way that it's a really great. Like I really enjoy watching it, but it just doesn't feel like it's like one of the 7 best movies of the year. But just like a great use case in terms of how to film that type of process. Like like wow, like how the hell did you make growing vegetables interesting in that way?
There were subtleties in the book that it just and I sound like such a like any dork.
Yeah,
like anyone talking about any book made into a movie ever.
But they totally glossed.
It's legit.
They totally glossed over like the finer points of his journey to present this Matt Damon to you.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a different book. Has anyone read or seen? Is it The Room or Room? It's Room.
It's Room.
The Room is the Tommy Wiseau thing. That's a different situation.
About The Room.
Throw forks at the screen. Have any of you read the book?
No, I heard about the book and was when it was getting a lot of press, and I was really intrigued by it.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to see the movie, and I saw it yesterday actually.
Room. I've seen it as well,
but I have not read the book.
Okay. What was your experience of it? What you think? Without getting into spoilers again, because there's another one that.
Well, I don't know, because if you look at a trailer, like, do you consider what's shown in the trailer spoilers?
Maybe because we're showing it right now.
Sure. All right. So yeah, you see in the trailer that like the premise of this movie is that there's this woman and her child, and she's been abducted. They are trapped in a room.
Yeah.
They can't get out. That's their whole world. And then they do get out. So the movie is about the movie covers both scenarios,
yes.
the before and the after. And oh man, is it so fascinating the way like, what if you had to raise a child, like this child, the only thing they know about the world is this room.
Yeah.
Like that's why the fact that the book and the movie are titled Room, it's like Earth.
Yes,
you don't
exactly.
Say, like,
yeah.
It's not like this is Earth. This is room. Like this is all of existence.
Yeah.
And they talk the way that like you see through the mom and through the kid, the like world she's had to create, and then the way that he's interpreted the world and the way that he's built his world, like it's amazing.
And then how he has to deal with, oh no, it's like Plato's cave basically. It's like, oh, it's not just the shadows dancing on the wall. This is the world. And how does your brain compensate for that? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, once he's out, and then all of a sudden, like the world is more of a reality, and like he's squinting all the time, and that makes you think. There's a scene with a doctor, and you're like, oh my god, like yes, like this kid seems totally like normal and functional, but what if like he hasn't been exposed to germs or like varying like there's only one source of natural light in his house, and
he thought that television was like this weird ethereal place where everything like it didn't exist, like it was all cartoons.
I thought that kid did such a fantastic job.
Yeah, great
throughout that whole movie. And I think Brie Larson, who also got the nominated for Best Actress, I think she did a good job. I feel like it's a kind of a soft nomination for Best Actress because what you really see, like the times that you really see, like she shows you her struggle in some ways, but then in the latter half of the movie where you're seeing the adjustment to the world outside, you're really seeing it through the kid's eyes.
Yeah.
A lot more.
I mean, the book was
than
mostly
hers.
Apparently told through the kid's eyes.
Yeah, and there are
so you
scenes
don't
where
really
you hear his internal monologue. And so I think that like I'm not sure about that Best Actress nomination, but like for Best Picture, I think that it's like such a fascinating drama, such an intriguing story, and that comes from the adaptation. But yeah, awesome. that was a standout for me.
We need to get through a couple of more of these as well. Has anyone seen Bridge of Spies? No. Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg. It's like, oh, okay, it's a Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg movie. Of course, it's getting a nomination.
It kind of feels like that. My wife saw it and she was not a fan.
Right.
But like it does. I mean, I don't really know what it's about. I'm sure it's a perfectly fine drama,
Cold
and
War,
a perfectly
man.
fun, entertaining,
Cold
perfectly
War,
entertaining
spies,
movie. But
planes crashing, apparently. Ejecting from Tom Hanks, Castaway. He lands on it. No, he's all right. Don't worry about
Wilson gets promoted to general.
Let us know in the comments what you think of Bridge of Spies, then, since we don't have any experts on the panel here.
Brush that under the rug.
Gloss over that one, no problem.
A movie, I think, did you see over the weekend? The Revenant? You did a double bill of Room and Revenant.
I did.
That's a tough afternoon.
That was a real feel-good time. The old AMC.
I haven't seen The Revenant. I tried to catch it over the weekend and couldn't, unfortunately. You haven't seen it either, Peter, have you?
Oh, I've seen it.
Oh, you've seen it?
Oh,
okay,
I've seen
perfect. Mary's outside. Last week was talking a lot about it as well. She was interested in it, but had sort of critiques as well. Peter, first of all, then, what did you think of The Revenant?
The easiest way for me to characterize it is that it's half an hour shorter than the cut of Hateful Eight that I saw.
Okay.
It felt at least an hour longer.
Well, okay.
I was less impressed with the film than I had hoped. The constant struggle that DiCaprio's character is going through begins to like not wear on you because he's struggling, but because it's like I feel like I just watched that scene. Like they changed the setting, they changed the problem he's dealing with, but it's still the same kind of issue. Like he's not getting to where he needs to get. And then I felt the resolution in the third act just came way too fast, and the payoff wasn't there for me. The thing I had been waiting for was a letdown.
Chris, you came away from it thinking like, oh, this is a really beautifully shot movie, but again, it
but
really
you're in the
set your
beautiful
fire.
wilds of Canada. I mean, like, it's not that hard to make that area seem beautiful. On that note, just a quick sidebar, like. I was looking at the nominees for Best Cinematography, which, of course, The Revenant is one. I watched another one of those this weekend, Sicario, which is about the border and the drug war between U.S. and Mexico.
Yes,
and like
del Toro
the cinematography and like you want to take like Banff National Park and make it look beautiful, no problem. Right. You want to take the Mexican border at Juarez that has like shanty towns on one side, prefab houses on the other, and a big ugly ass steel wall in between, and make that look beautiful and like menacing but intriguing and like foreboding in all these wonderful ways. Sicario does that, and like it was a great watch and the cinematography was so strong.
Sadly not nominated for was Emily Blunt in that as well?
Yes, she was. Didn't get a whole lot of nominations. Most of them were production related. But back to The Revenant. I feel like this is one of those nominations where they're like, man, you guys went out into the snow and acted a lot.
And
that must have been real hard.
Grunted a lot.
Here's your nomination. Like Leo DiCaprio, his performance in that, I have no doubt that was very difficult for him, and no doubt that was taxing for him as an actor. But like, he plays an animal throughout the whole thing.
Right.
He's not a human because he's so messed up that he is like debased to his basic survival instincts, which is fine. That's a certain kind of narrative, but a survival story, like, you need tension for it to really hit home. And never did I doubt that he was going to survive until at the last scene of the movie.
Okay, well,
Come on.
No,
seriously, halfway through.
No. That's not.
This is but that's
if you don't
like
need to
from
talk
the
about
get-go.
that.
You look at the movie trailer.
No, I don't. So like,
Okay.
and you can't assume that.
I'm sorry.
You can't assume anyone else will.
All right.
Prove your point without talking about plot issues.
Fair enough. But it was all right. So this was my other problem with The Revenant, which was you were talking about how you like historical movies that create old times.
Feel like you're stepping back in time.
It does a fantastic job of creating this like wild west, the wild north between like American fur traders, French fur traders, Native Americans. Like, it creates this incredible scene there and sets the stage, and all the Native American tribes are represented in diverse and interesting ways. Like, there's a couple different factions at play. And then they like have this great chance to make this drama in this setting with a Native American lead character, and they cast Leo DiCaprio. Like, it just felt like it was almost there. Like, it could have been something special, but it fell short in a few ways to me. And it's a monumental film in many ways, but like,
interesting. Another one that we're kind of lukewarm a bit on, the panel. We've got two more to get into. The Big Short. This is about the financial crisis, obviously, another movie about that. I believe it's adapted from the same writer who wrote Moneyball, based on a book as well. Anyone seen this at all? Big, lot of famous actors and actresses in this one.
The Big Short talk segment. This is going to be a short talk segment.
Great. All right.
There
you go. Let us know what you think about The Big Short. Whether Adam McKay should win Best Director or it gets Best Movie. Let us know in the comments below. And I guess the last movie, this is one that I watched recently. Michael Sugar's up for a win on this for Best Film. I hadn't really heard of it until quite recently. Spotlight. This is Michael Keaton and friends.
Oh yeah.
And the Boston Globe's reporting on the child molestation epidemic that was with the Catholic Church, stemming, I guess, from what was going on in Boston from their perspective, but then led to what was essentially a global problem. I didn't really know much about what was happening in Boston around that time because Ireland was going through the same thing in the years previous. And so at the end of the movie, there is a part where they show, here are the cities in which this was a problem.
Hartford, Connecticut was on.
Oh, really?
The list, yeah.
And there was like a bunch, like I feel like somewhere close to a dozen Irish towns were in there as well, on all the cities they mentioned. Really, really great movie. Like, obviously it's about something that is incredibly difficult and heartfelt. I think what's interesting about it is that it is predominantly told from the side of the media. Like, they obviously interview victims and they talk to priests and whatnot, but it is told from the side of, we have this story, we're researching it, it's like it's happening around the same times as like, these papers are shutting down, like 9/11 happens in the middle, so it doesn't happen, they don't have this sort of, it's not the right time to publish the story anymore. We're worried about someone else picking up the story. We need to get them. Like, it's not, we're just reporting on a story. This is the story that we need to nail the church to the wall so that it doesn't happen again. So it's like, it's an incredible story. It's only told from that perspective, which I think is probably to its credit in a way. Like, in that way, it becomes a little, like, I enjoy it more, I think, more because of being like involved somewhat in the press and whatnot. Like, I enjoy that aspect of it at least. Mm-hmm. I think maybe other people who aren't interested in the process of press writing might think it's a little bit self-indulgent with the press, maybe a little bit, or it like focuses too much on that and not enough on the victims or the reality of the story perhaps. But it's great. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic. What you were saying about how when a movie does it right, it doesn't feel long. This movie is, I think it's 2 hours, 10, 15 minutes or something, and it breezed by. It was really wonderful. And it's great when you watch a movie and you feel like, holy shit. Like, that's kind of like I'm glad I watched that, because like, this is something that we should not forget about. That like, this sort of stuff people got away with doing this awful shit for, let's say, centuries. Finally get called out, and it's been over a decade now, but lest we not forget important lessons. Those are the movies. So I guess the last question for you guys: The Big Short, Mad Max Fury Road. Josh Shaw has sent me a link. There are apparently Miller will be going back and making more Mad Max movies. Article post more recently. So we'll see about that.
So hey,
thanks, Josh. The Big Short, Mad Max Fury Road, Brooklyn, The Martian, The Revenant, Bridge of Spies, Room, Spotlight. Peter, what gets your win?
Off that list, Mad Max.
All right.
Of the half of these that I've seen, Mad Max is my choice for sure.
And I really liked Spotlight a lot, but of the movies that I've watched here, I'd also say Mad Max Fury Road. Wouldn't it be fucking great if an action movie? Well, that just shows you how good that movie is
on many levels.
On so many, like the sort of the action, the cinematography, the shooting, the like the subtext, like everything about it is just like.
They just needed less guitar guy. And then
more guitar guy.
Oh god.
He married one of the what's her name again? I forget the name of one of the wives. Whatever her name is. She was Elvis Presley's granddaughter. Is that right? They got married. Diddle dude. Diddle dude. That guy. Diddle dude.
I got a question for you about these nominees.
All right.
One that was not missing, that I feel was missing from the Best Picture nomination list.
Yeah.
Inside Out by Pixar.
Oh yeah, you think?
I think so.
I saw that at Pixar, and sorry, God, that's just the worst thing that I've ever said. I saw that at Pixar.
Danny, it's okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I saw that. I meant to say I'm such a big Pixar fan, and I love those movies. And I was really lucky that I got to go see it there. And actually, I thought that was good. That was a good Pixar movie.
That was a good Pixar movie?
It didn't blow my mind.
Me.
Oh my God. All right. So I watched this in a...
Let's not get too far. We're running a bit long on this.
Okay.
But
anyways, I think that the way that this movie is insightful and illuminating about the human condition and about human emotion and about the way emotions work inside of our brains is phenomenal. And I think that it's, the stories of teachers and psychiatrists using it to like help educate people warm my heart. But like I watched this with my wife and her mother, and we had lost my father-in-law in the past couple of years, and like this, like the way that movie deals with like grief and sadness, and it was like we discussed it afterwards, and like how true it was in our lives then, how it resonates with stuff that we encountered in our childhood. It just the writing and the way that they brought it to life, I thought was phenomenal and worthy of high praise.
We've already run over super long on this, but I think that we can't talk about this without also talking about what's happening in relation to, with not to say that like this is something we should only talk about on Martin Luther King weekend, but especially and with everything that's happening at the moment sort of around the country. Obviously there's a lot of eyes on the fact that this is a super white nominees list across the board. Jada Pinkett Smith and Spike Lee are going to not be attending the Oscars. The Academy's put out its own press release about this. We're three white guys here. We're not the people to be really talking about this, but let's just take a moment and say like, there were some really great movies starring African-American actors or some about African-American stories, which did not get highlighted this year. The ones that sort of stand out to me, I think we're looking at the moment, is Creed, which I did not see. A lot of people telling me that this is not just a great Rocky movie, but this is a great movie.
Yeah, it's true.
You seen it?
Yeah, I really liked it. Like the kind of like the old Mad Max films, the Rocky films for me were like this little joke that you'd like reference once in a while. Just go back to have a laugh.
Kind of hokey, but fun and great. And
this was like a solid like kind of coming of age story for this kid who grew up like in the splendor of his father's success, figuring out who he was and finding his own success and defining that in his own terms. And then sort of linking back to this old series. And it did it in a way that wasn't really like ham-fisted. Like Rocky was this really like this dude with problems, like he's by the end of the movie, he's still not resolved his issues. And, but that's fine. Because Michael B. Jordan, the kid who played Adonis Creed, was so good like at his role. It's so believable. And so good as a companion, like with his girlfriend. I thought that was a really honest relationship, and it was interesting to see that blossom alongside this sort of like film that's based on fighting.
A couple of other movies that people have been pointing out, Beasts of No Nation, I haven't seen yet, but one I did see. As a massive NWA fan, I was actually kind of a little bit worried about this. I thought like, it's a kind of a weird story to try and tell, especially like you're going to use ex-singers, like the person who's in the movie's son to play yourself. It's just so much about Straight Outta Compton seemed like it wasn't going to work. Man, this was a fucking solid movie. I absolutely adored it. Chris, did you see it at all?
No, unfortunately.
Peter, have you seen it? It's super great. I watched it. I watched it on a plane on the way back from DC.
Was it a Pixar private jet, Dan?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. And I thought it was amazing. Giamatti's in it, and it's got all the actors in it playing. What it did actually was tell a side of that story that I didn't realize because I was so young when all that was happening, and I sort of was an NWA fan after the fact. Was that, man, they were so young. Like those dudes were like straight out of school. Like they were still teenagers. They were young men when that was happening. And I guess the movement that they lit didn't seem weird to them because that was the reality they were living in, but it seemed weird to the rest of the world.
Right.
So like it wasn't like they were some revolutionaries who were taking this dangerous idea and trying to force it on people. That was just the reality they lived in, and it seemed completely normal for them to talk about it. And I think as somebody who sort of only ever saw one side of that conversation through their music, to sort of see what I saw in this movie wasn't just an echo of their music. It was actually really putting context to what was happening during that time, which someone, especially growing up in Ireland, who didn't really know a lot about civil rights movement or about the sort of Rodney King episodes and all that sort of stuff, definitely growing up, it was like a massive, massive insight into that world. And it still kind of fucking sucks, right? That like we're watching like Selma was another movie I watched recently. We're watching all these movies about these poignant times in the world where we have learned lessons in the same way that like I was watching a movie about Catholic priests getting away with molesting, like movies about these times, but like literally it's still happening. Like when we're talking about like, it's like art and life, or just like, it's almost ridiculous that, we're in this situation, and I'm sure the Academy is full of a lot of, old Hollywood people. So you're talking predominantly Caucasian, predominantly male. So it's a sort of a shame that we're not. Like in the UK, they have the MOBO Awards, which is like specifically to highlight people of color's art and music specifically. We don't, that's probably not the right way to go about doing this sort of stuff, but like you gotta feel for all these artists when they're making all this stuff and it doesn't get recognized just because people aren't in touch with it. Like they don't even see it.
It just seems to me like, we're all white dudes here, right?
Yeah.
We're used to seeing ourselves.
I'm whiter than all of you.
We're used to seeing ourselves represented in a variety of ways. There's not just like the one or two great white dude movies this year. Like there's a lot because such a lion's share of movies are made with white dudes in like really prominent roles. I think that when you hear people talking, especially women and people of color, talking about how representation matters to them and being represented in, on screen, in awards, how that's so vital and so important, you can't ignore that. You have to listen. You have to trust that is a real powerful thing, because it's not something I've ever struggled with, being able to look at a screen and see an image of myself or an image of how I might imagine myself.
It's like an alien concept.
Yeah. Right. It's just not so to me, I trust those people, and I trust that and I read what they say, and it's compelling and it's heartbreaking. And then you turn around and see Star Wars, and the two stars of that are a woman and a black guy, and they are fantastic. And sure, say what you will about Star Wars being the name associated with it, but like that movie is great because those two are great in it. Yeah. And like that's, money talks. All right, well, money is talking. So like, let's not use that argument anymore.
For sure. Biggest movie opening of all time. There you go. Boom. Let's, see what happens. Interesting. Was that snubbed actually? Last point on this? Star Wars, since you bring it up.
Oh, for best film?
Yeah. It's a pretty good film.
I don't know. It's a really, it's a really great film, and I had a great time.
It's better than The Martian.
I would say yes.
Let us know in the comments if you think Star Wars The Force Awakens is better than The Martian. Let us know what you think about the nominees, what you think is going to win, and what do you think, some movies that maybe you liked that weren't mentioned at all in the nominations. Let us know in the comments below. All right. That ran on a little bit, but that was fun.
I mean, we took on a big topic. Let's be real.
That's true.
I was talking about the best movies of the year. There's a lot of movies.
I know. I was like saying, we'll only talk about best movies. We won't talk about like actors nominees or cinematography or anything. It'll be super short.
No problem. Whoops. And then I came in and I have like my whole nominee list here, and I'm scrolling back and forth. And I'm like, oh yeah, sound editing. And
I like it. Great to have you here, though.
Last question: is Leo going to get his Best Actor award?
Wait, has he not gotten one before?
No, he's never gotten an Oscar.
Really? Fuck, you should stop trying.
I feel like he shouldn't for this.
No,
I don't know, man. He shouldn't. Just like he didn't do a bad job in the movie by any stretch, but it just was like,
do The Beach 2. There's your nomination. Beached. More beach hard with a vengeance.
Gilbert Grapes all grown up.
Before beach.
Before we leave, I wanted to open up some questions to Twitch if anyone has any. And I kind of want to ask you guys what you've been playing at the moment, what you played over the weekend. I asked Aaron already. You said you were just watching anime.
And live action adaptations of anime.
What
I
is
watched Rurouni Kenshin is an anime series about a samurai who was a merciless killer in the time of feudal Japan.
Okay.
But when they found peace,
Oh, yeah.
the imperialists,
Mammoth out of war.
so he decided to have the blade on his sword reversed and fight only to defend those when they needed help,
Okay.
and to never kill again. The anime is very long-winded, and I liked it when I was a teenager, but not so much. But they made 3 movies
Okay.
that
Like in Japanese?
Huh?
In Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They encapsulate pretty much all 95 episodes of the TV show, and they're really good. Like, I really liked them a lot. And a character who struggles with who he is and because he was like sold as a slave and then sort of taken on by this guy and then betrayed his teacher to go fight the good fight, but ended up killing people. See him struggle with that stuff. It's actually a great story, even though it's based on an anime. I also watched the Ace Attorney movie.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was one.
It's done by Takeshi Miike, the guy behind Ichi the Killer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Ichi
You
the
can tell it's done by him.
Ichi's great.
But it's not a great movie.
No, it's a shame. Chris, you playing it over the weekend?
Did I play anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I played Rocket League.
2016's Game of the Year.
Come
Look, he's got that
on.
shirt, and he's got that shirt. Game's still great.
I played Rocket League. I'm working on my wall play because, like, once you're up on the wall, like, I really I jump off and then I need to like jump off and then go into an aerial. That's what I'm working on. Is like how that's another dimension to aerial play in Rocket League. Also, playing some Witcher. I'm working through that Skellige situation.
Wow.
Which I've played that game a lot. I'm like level 20 something. I don't know. But so I've like finished a lot of the mainland quests to this point, and now doing Skellige stuff and like sailing around. And
have you completed the main story yet?
No.
That's great.
No,
God, that game is so big. It's so dumb.
And I also have watched in the past, what's today, the 19th, 19 days, like 4.5 seasons of Homeland.
Oh, wow. Did you just start from the start?
Yeah, because Jill and I got a nasty cold, like the first, like right on New
great.
Year's
Now
Day.
we all have it. Great.
No, I was out for like a significant amount of time. But yeah, so we just like got Showtime streaming through Hulu Plus and have watched almost all of that entire show, and it's great.
I don't know what it is. Like the first season, I was like, oh, all right, and then it gets a good thing at the end. It's like, oh, all right, season 2, let's see what happens. The season 2 is like, and then it kind of maybe, and then like I gave it 3. I haven't watched any of this season because I'm like, nah, fuck it, man.
We're on the 5th season now.
There's 5.
Yeah,
or maybe I watched 4.
I think Claire Danes is awesome. I think that that character is really fascinating in the way that she's like super badass and is like portrayed as such, not just from like what she does, but from the way that everyone else views her in the show. But she's still got problems that
she's got
like,
so many problems.
Really big
I
problems.
don't understand.
So like sometimes you're like, yeah, she's gonna do it, and other times you're like, no, Gary, no.
I think I find her character so unbelievable that she gets so far over the line and comes back from it.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, no, you should have at least like thrown yourself off a bridge one of these times. Like she's just.
How does it happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
because the wonder of television.
Totally.
I want to give a shout out to. I'd never played. I played Revenant, the video game, over the weekend, which is the Long Dark, the roguelike. You crash in the like persistent death. You crash in the Canadian wilderness and have to survive as long as you can before you. I don't think you can not die in that game. I'm pretty sure you just eventually die.
You eventually die.
So I lasted for like 3 days, but you're literally like finding, scraps of food and like lighting a fire with like stuff that you've broken outside in like the minus 20 degrees outdoors. And like I did this thing where I was like, okay, I've gotten like all my gloves, I've like patched up all my stuff, like I'm warm and I have enough food and I've like boiled this soup so it's gonna be warm, so when I go out in the cold it'll be like I'll keep warm and I'll do all this, and then I just have to sleep until, because you can't go out at nighttime because it's just, you die of cold. Like it's just so bad. It's like minus 30, minus 40. So I'm like waiting until the morning and I sleep and I time it all right, and then I sleep and then it's like amount of daylight left ? And I go outside and it's a blizzard. And I just can't.
What can you do?
Best laid plans of mice and men. I'm just like, fuck. So I went back indoors, just waiting for the blizzard to pass. And then I go to sleep for 2 hours, wait for the blizzard to pass, and then the blizzard passes and it's like 4 hours of daylight left, and I'm like, well, I have to go now because I don't have enough stuff. So I just
something.
walk, and then I walk, and then like fucking wolf, man. I find this gun. It's my last story about this. I find this gun, and I think that there's like a clip or whatever, right? And then it's like up in the top corner, and it says, "All right, this is how many shots." All right. Then this like wolf. I'm trying to like avoid this pack of wolves, and then one of them sees me. He's like walking towards me, and I'm like, "Shit!" And I load it up. And I'm like, "Oh, the sights on this are like slightly broken. They're slightly off. Like I cleaned the gun, so hopefully it should be okay." And I'm like, "All right." And I wait for him to get like a little bit closer, and I go, I'm like, "Shit." No bullets. I thought there was bullets in it.
Oh no.
Jumps on my face, and I'm like stabbing him in the face with a knife, like bleeding everywhere, bandaged up. I died like a day later or like 2 hours later because I just like it succumbed. Like it just once one thing happens, it just like piles on. Super great game. Really, really enjoying it.
You reminded me of one of the things I did like about The Revenant, which was how many times I felt myself physically reacting to like cold.
Yeah.
Like they go in the river and I'm like, "Gah!" Just like, and like things happen and you just like feel like I felt a bunch of those moments. And I think that they did a good job with that for sure.
Awesome.
But like, gah, I was like cringing. I'm sitting next to some couple. This is the great thing about going to the movie theater solo is like you go and get those front row seats with like the bar, you put your feet up, no problem, because every couple that sits up there is leaving a space between them.
Right, yeah,
you just sidle up and you're like, "Hey guys."
Pro strats. I love it. Chris Waters, great to have you on. Thanks very much for coming in, dude.
Back,
Peter Brown, thank you so much for coming in. Sorry we said we'd take you for 15 minutes and then kept you for an hour.
Dude, you're keeping me from getting work done. I love it.
That's true. Thanks so much to Andy Bauman, who's been holding a camera on his waist for like the past hour and 20 minutes. Thank you so much to everyone who's been watching the show over the past couple of weeks. It's great to be back live. We're still playing with the format, still like tightening it up, figuring out what we're going to talk about. But video games are coming out again, so we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about over the next couple of weeks. We should be back in the studio in 3 weeks' time, hopefully first week of February. We've got a really tight turnaround for when the set gets built, so we're aiming for that, we'll hope. We're also going to get the podcast version up around then as well. We're working on it, but if you have any other suggestions, feel free to hit me up at Danny Dwyer on Twitter. Feel free to hit up anyone on the production staff, Andy, Josh, Dan, Eric Tay, and of course put it in the comments. We're in there talking on GameSpot, on YouTube, all over the shop. Thank you so much for watching The Lobby this week. We'll be back this week. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Same time, same place. We'll see you then. Enjoy a week of video games. Adios.